All right, everyone, welcome back to the Gamblin Ram UFC Breakdown Show. And we got a good one coming up with UFC 329 on International Fight Week. And it's the return of McGregor taking on Max Holloway. So you definitely love to see that. Overall, the fight card is awesome as well, too. So we're going to get into a bunch of fights. This will be a shorter breakdown. What I'm going to do here is try to find the best decision prop, sub prop, KO prop. Maybe give you a parlay piece, and then, I'll give you a few random money lines. Of course, I'll have to make a pick at the very least on the McGregor and Holloway fight, but we'll see what I do with that. Maybe I'll give an official bet. I'm not too sure on that one yet. That's a tough fight to call. But before we get into it, please make sure you like and subscribe. And also, if you check in the description, you can get to my social media pages. You can get to my X, follow there. That's where you can see my official betting card, my picks, and, random tweets that I throw out during the week regarding the fight card coming up. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, let's get started. What we want to do first, we're going to look for a nice decision prop for you guys. And I think there's a bunch of fights that I could see going to decision. Sandhagen, Bautista, Royval, Kavanaugh. There's a lot of fights on thin margins. My model that I use likes Robert Whittaker by decision at plus 250. I am torn on that fight because I think either guy can get finished, so I wasn't sure if that was the best one to pick. And then some of these earlier fights on the early prelims as well. Like I could see, if you want to go for a big upset, odds decision, Cody Durden plus 400 by decision. I mean, he just cashed a big one against Jafel Filho. I know Costa is very powerful with his striking, so you might want to stay away from that, but I might be willing to go back to the Cody Durden well. And I actually do like a small play on him for his money line at plus 220. But if you really want to get into it, I would think maybe the decision might be your best path with Durden. But what I landed on was Farid Basharat by decision at plus 130. And my reasoning behind that is that Farid is always in fights that seem to go to decision. He's 6-0 in the UFC, 5 wins by decision, 1 by sub, which came on his second fight in the promotion. And that's because he's a very solid striker with good striking defense, and he has very well-timed takedowns and good top control when he gets there. So he's always able to get to those spots that he wants to. And I could just see that again. Garza's coming in on short notice, and from what I taped on him, he's got some pretty sharp hands, especially for a young fighter. And I'm actually excited to see how he could perform in this one, because it's possible that they end up just signing him to other fights after that, because he's coming in to fight essentially a ranked opponent, an undefeated 6-0 in the UFC fighter. And that's like your debut on short notice. He was in camp for a fight in August, so I think he should be in good shape. But at plus 130, I think the Basharat decision, that's a good look in my opinion. For the submission, I'm going all the way up to Benoît Saint Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. I think both of them have the capabilities of getting a sub. So I saw Paddy's submission prop at anywhere from plus 500 to plus 600. I think that's a great one because Benoît Saint Denis has a lot of wrestling entries that are sloppy. He's a brute, obviously, BSD, and he's awesome to watch fight. But technically, sometimes he's not really all the way there. And if Paddy's able to snatch a front choke or snatch that neck, or even get on top and start to ground and pound, it might be sort of like a club and sub situation. And that's a path I could see for Paddy. And we know what Benoît Saint Denis wants to do. He wants to get those takedowns. He wants to drag you to the mat. He wants to torture you down there, and then he wants to choke you out, just like he did against Dan Hooker and just like he's done against other people. That's what Benoît Saint Denis likes to do. We know his style. He got roofie with it. He actually he couldn't get the sub on Hooker. He was trying. Ariushi took out in a second. Prepolek with the arm triangle. It's basically, that's his game though, it's violence on the ground, and he'll go for the choke after that. So I like that. Also, just the fight to end by sub is plus 175, maybe on DraftKings, maybe better on other books. So to me, that's a pretty good look. And then for the KO, I think there's a bunch of KOs that have potential on this one. Obviously, this King Green and Terrance McKinney fight, which we'll get to in a second. But I think it's just time to fade my boy Cody No Love Garbrandt, unfortunately. I think Yanez's boxing is super crisp. He's got a lot of power. I mean, you saw what he did to Ricky Simón at the end of his last fight. He basically almost faceplant KO'd him. Simón was saved by the bell 100%. If there was any time left, that fight was over. And Cody's coming off a performance that he somehow won because Long, his opponent, lost multiple points by kicking him in the nuts. Cody was throwing up in a garbage can, and I honestly still kind of thought he might have lost, but he did cash that one. So fading a guy, aging, coming off a win with no chin, Adrian Yanez minus 110 for the KO. Feels free to me. And also just his money line. I know it's heavy, but I think it's a parlay piece. And if you want to get a little bit crazier with the debut of Gable Steveson, Gable is minus 300 by KO. You parlay that with Yanez. I think I got it at about plus 157. So 2 KOs for plus money in spots that I think should hit. I like that. And this fight, King Green, Terrance McKinney, it's going to be all action, insane from start to finish, which I think it will be finishing very quickly. I got the under 1.5 at minus 238, which at the time I was like, that must be kind of a gift. Every single Terrance McKinney fight goes under. And now if you look at it, it's like minus 400, minus 425. I don't know if it's parlayable anymore. I would wait to see if it drops back into the low 300s, high 200s before I even would think about parlaying that again. But yeah, I took that under in the low minus 200s, and I think that at the open, essentially. And I think that was the best parlay piece of the week. If that doesn't hit, I don't know anymore, man. Terrance is crazy. He's got 2.5, 3 minutes of gas. King Green is dangerous also. So I'm picking violence in that one. And then finally, we got the main event, Conor McGregor, Max Holloway. We got a rematch, 14 years in the making. Conor McGregor, we've been waiting for him to come back. And who knows what he has left in the tank. At the open, he was at plus 350 or so. And when I saw that, I clicked it for sure. And I have plenty of positive CLV. I could cash it out, but I don't know what I want to do with it yet. I haven't made it an official bet on any of my trackers or anything like that, or on Twitter, because when you really break it down further, how is Conor going to do anything besides have a huge knockout punch or a crazy flurry in round one? Is he really going to have the cardio to go into the third, fourth, or even fifth round? I'm not so sure about that. And you know Max just gets better and better as the fight goes on, as long as he's in it. And if McGregor starts to wilt a little bit, Max will take advantage of that and probably KO him. Honestly, it's one of those weird ones where I kind of like the McGregor at plus 350, not only from a fan perspective, but just the number was crazy at the time. And honestly, maybe it wasn't crazy and he's just getting bet down because it's Conor McGregor. That's honestly probably it. So the smart bet would probably be Max Holloway. I think by KO, you could maybe get a little tricky and try to nail like a round 2, 3, or 4 type of situation. But yeah, overall, I would pick Max. I have the bet on Conor. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I think I'm going to mostly be a big fan on this one. So yeah, that's the short breakdown, I think this is going to be an awesome card. We roll into next week with UFC Oklahoma City, I believe, and that should be another good fight night. But this is going to be a treat this weekend. So once again, make sure you just like and subscribe. Check out my social medias below. And we'll be back with some more content for you guys. Take it easy.